Let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. The second part of our afternoon section starts now, and I have a technical announcement. Today there is a reception organized by the Mitteldeutsche Airport Holding. They were generous to offer us this reception, and everybody is welcome. So the buses are going to leave at around 5:30 here, but don't worry, we are going to finish sharp at 5:30, and the buses are going to wait for you. So those who intend to participate on this reception should go down to the main entrance, and there all the buses, I guess, all the buses which are there will take you to the reception. If it is not going to be the case, then that's another issue. This afternoon, the second part of the afternoon, is going to be also about the different aspects of the intermodal transport and supply chain issues. This will concentrate on the activity and the integration of the transport activities, the emergence of the new so-called mega players in the market, what impact they will have on the market actually, and how the experts see the potential growth of the intermodal rail, barge and short sea shipping services. Our keynote speaker will be Professor Dr. Wolfgang Stölzle, and I have to quote a few sentences about him. Mr. Stölzle is the Managing Director, Chair of Logistics Management at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland, and his specific field is logistics management. And as I see his CV here, he spent most of his professional activities somewhere in the area of the logistics. So his speech is going to be a very good one to launch another round of discussions today. Mr. Stölzle, the floor is yours.
So thanks very much for this kind introduction. Now I try to get a little bit more focus on the business administration perspective. It's called logistics management, and I have some slides with me to give you an impression about view of a manufacturer of high-tech products which uses supply chain between China and Germany in this case. Now to start, quick look at the mega trends in the global supply chain management field. I think we have had a hard discussion about the globalization impacts. The supply chains get more and more complex, more and more dynamic also, and I think it's important to recognize that also small and medium-sized companies are embedded in global supply chains. Not only a question of the huge concerns. Actual trends like demand fluctuation or cost pressure we have just mentioned. In the last month, we are also confronted with very small order quantities and hard decrease of the order quantities, and it's also important to realize that the logistics processes in such supply chains must be oriented at the customer's demand. We don't have to forget this focus. In the first part, I can give you some expressions about a case study we have worked out in the summer 2008. It was only a few weeks before economic crisis just driven all around the world. And our task in this case study was to look for optimizing potentials in an Asian-European intermodal supply chain for consumer goods, especially high-tech consumer goods. So the background is that the imports from the southeast China grew rapidly during the last years, especially concerning the high-tech products. There are issues like velocity, quality, delivery, reliability, seen as a basis for corporate success. The traffic policies in this case must set the conditions to meet the efficiency objectives also for the companies, and have also worry about the stability of the supply chains. We have just discussed about the security aspects, for example, in the ports and also concerning in air freight. In this case, we have a high-tech supply chain with a plant or several plants in China, and a main warehouse or distribution center in Central Europe, and the market, the consumers, are also located in Central Europe. In this background, the company was confronted with three categories of objectives. The first and the most important is and was the increase of delivery reliability. Just this topic we had discussed before our coffee break. The second important was the supply chain cost. We have also discussed about that, and discussed about ratios in this case. And the third category were environmental sustainability. This was also measured by environmental costs in emissions per 40-foot container. The focus laid on the pre-carriage in Asia, the first process step. The second was the main carriage or the sea freight transport between Asia and Europe. And the third was the subsequent transport, which began at the port, seaport in Europe, to the customers in Central Europe. So the characterization of the problem issues in these three phases on the following. The pre-carriage phase, the task were the transport from facility in China to the Chinese port, the clearing processes in the port, and the processes, other processes, value-added processes in the port till the carriage to the vessel. Here we had discussed a lot of questions concerning reliability, loading and planning processes, but we recognized soon that the influence of the European manufacturer on this effect was not too high. So it was limited, and so this was not the main topic in the following phases of our project. In the second phase followed the main carriage, the transport over thousands of sea miles, and the shipping itself didn't offer any optimization potential. There was two shipping lines with similar reliability measures. The only difference was the choice of the ports in Europe, and this was a very important impact on the third phase, the subsequent carriage, because the hinterland connections were different. One was Hamburg, the next was Rotterdam, and the third one was Bremerhaven. And so this shows the connection also between the phase 2 and the phase 3 in this case. To give you a short look at the calculation of this case here, the cost aspects were compared between Rotterdam and Bremerhaven. Rotterdam on the right side, Bremerhaven on the left side, and the rest of the whole process chain concerning phase 1 and phase 2 were similar, and the cost differences are caused only in phase 3. So the supply chain costs, which run over a year, deferred more than 3 million euros per year, and this was a very important recognition for the decisive people in this company. The consequences were that the administrative and the physical sensitivity in Rotterdam was on a higher level than in Bremerhaven and also in Hamburg. There were additional clearing processes necessary. Also, the missing storage capacities in Rotterdam were a negative point in the impacts, and the third impact was that the whole transport distance over Rotterdam was the shortest one, but the part of the road transport was the highest one. So the CO2 emission were on the highest level when the company would take the choice to go over Rotterdam. So it's only a very short look in a very complex case here. What were some of the learnings? In Europe, we found out that the capacities in the hinterland transportation infrastructure are the most important bottleneck, and the performance of the infrastructure in this case was decisive for the manufacturer to go over Bremerhaven and not over Hamburg and not over Rotterdam, accompanied by security aspects and administrative processes like clearing and other were also important for the decision process. So to have a first conclusion, the role of transport policy need to create conducive conditions for all market participants and reduce also negative effects of transport. The main task must be to extend and maintain the infrastructure in Europe, especially concerning the hinterland transportation and the infrastructure for them. And the other important aspect must be to see and to understand the efficiency objectives of the companies which are involved in such intermodal and also global supply chains. So we have both actors which can influence the efficiency objectives. One is the transport policy, that's perhaps in our interest here, and the other is also the measurements of the companies which are involved in the supply chains by themselves. The impact of the political instruments on efficient intermodal transport would be perhaps at first on the left side below the infrastructure and technology policy, like identifying and regarding the capacity bottlenecks, to recognize need of reinvestments, to optimize and to coordinate the construction sites. Second one would be to adapt the taxes and the duties on transportation, to harmonize them, and it would also mean to harmonize the track prices, the aid of the tolls, the internalization also of external or environmental costs. Third one, on the right side below, the international harmonization and standards. It's especially in the global context, very important aspect. And last but not least, on the left side, up on there, to see the regulatory policy, which stands for the neutrality between the different transport modes. There I see huge differences between the countries, especially in Switzerland. We have no neutrality. We have a priority for the train transport there. So this could be also a discussion topic to compare the strategies of the transport policy between several countries. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Stölzer. The last slide summarized quite well those principal and theoretical issues which should be tackled in the proper management of the intermodal transportation in the future, and it also highlighted certain other tasks which have to be dealt with by certain bodies, organizations, including the European Commission. The first intervention on this subject is going to be done by Mr. Hans-Georg Werner, who is now going to be introduced. Mr. Werner is representing a Deutsche Bahn Schenker part, and he is member of the management board of the Deutsche Bahn Schenker Rails, and he started his career at the Deutsche Bahn, and today he is dealing with multimodal transportation within this specific organization. And he likes to approach things from a practical point of view.
Thank you very much. When I was asked to join this group, I was asked for a 5-minute statement. I tried to keep the 5 minutes. You know, we are a company, we want to make money, so we have to earn money actually. So I only have 3 charts. This one included with the nice pictures. There you can see what we do. We do shipping, we do rail, and we do approximately also the truck transport. This we do global. 3 statements, and then 1 slide where I want to tell you where we as DB Schenker, how we want to face the situation. First thing is crisis and downturn is everywhere. Second, crisis will interrupt but does not stop globalization. That is what I'm actually definitely sure of. We will have in the next years another increase in demand of transport and logistics, and this is a growing industry. Second statement from our point of view, deregulation and global production chains increase the demand of integrated worldwide logistic services. And then 1 point which was just in a few sentences mentioned, and that is we will have to do more green logistics. This will be more and more important due to the fact that CO2 emission is not only important for buying cars. And at the end, what we think, and this is also important for the investments for future, container traffic will continue, and we will come more and more to those 20 and 40-foot boxes. Maybe not in the bulk region, but in the consumer good area. So, and last but not least, what do we want, what do we need from governments? We need, beside deregulation, and you mentioned France already, and the railway system, SNCF is at the point where we have been 10 years before. And I see a lot of parallels there, because I joined the company 11 years ago. So, and I had all that stages already, and where they are now. But I can tell you they will grow with the increase of competition and deregulation. But what we also want is we need infrastructure development. That is very, very important. And not only on rail, but also on road. And we need a climate change policy. We can do whatever we want on rail. If we do not have a commitment of the governments, we will not win this fight against trucks and even barges. And at the end, it's an intermodal business. That means we all together, we are one system, and we need all of them. But we have to see what government at the end, or the European community, can do for us. So, last one. What do we do, how we face the situation? First, globalization. Global trade will increase hinterland traffic, and it was very interesting to hear that the hinterland costs of the traffic was at the end the point where you took this decision, Bremerhaven or Rotterdam. So I think we have to work on Rotterdam. Second point, international production chains raise demand for integrated logistics services. That is absolutely true, because we found out 10 years ago, where we only had been DB Cargo, that only a trucking company is not enough to fulfill the requirements of customers. So we have to go in that logistic change to the left side and to the right side. And what we think is, and that is, let's say, a vision, we think that at the end we will have growing volumes on rail from China to Europe and backwards. Why do we think so? Actually, I already mentioned the $150 container from China to Germany. This is not the normal situation. If we have a normal situation, then we have air freight, very, very quick, very fast, but very expensive. And then we have sea freight. Sea freight is low cost, but it takes 30 days to come from Asia to Europe. So there is nothing in between. But we can offer is we already did 2 test trains from China to Europe, and we did another one, which was not in the medias, from Germany to China already. So we think, and that's from the time slot, it's in between. And if we find a good solution to bring all the railway companies and even security measures, it's a matter of security. If you transport 40 containers loaded with flat TVs from China to Europe, you can imagine you need some security. Okay, that is about globalization. Climate change, I already mentioned. For instance, one point if you go on our website, DB Schenker, you will find a calculator for CO2 emission. So you can calculate as a customer for your transports what the CO2 emission is on truck, on barge, on sea, and on rail, and even on air freight. So you can calculate it. And at the end, markets are opening up. That is the reason why we everywhere increase our own activities. If we go on rail, we have our companies in Italy. We already have our company now in France and in the UK. I think that is what we need, a network, but not only a network of railway. We need a network of intermodal business. That means trucks, trucking companies. We need ships, and we have to work together to fulfill at the end the requirements of customers. And that is the reason why we think that we are prepared for the next centuries as DB Schenker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This was another approach of the subject. Now we have another intervention from Mr. Boris Lapidus, who is the Vice President of the Russian Railways, responsible for the strategic planning and development. He deals with railway issues, and at the same time he has a specific approach from the economic point of view. So we are going to receive something which is rather special based on experiences.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to address you. I'd like to link up with what my colleague, Mr. Werner, said, because he tackled a very important logistic problem, that is advancement of intermodal transport and transporting goods from Asia to Europe. In recent years, we have established partnership-based relations with Deutsche Bahn. We are advancing them. We shape complex transport products whose market introduction has added a new quality of transport modes and is supposed to do so. In the current context of the crisis, we perceive everywhere that the only and most important advantage of the land transport bridge between Asia and Europe is to be seen in advancing the speed and reliability of transport. The development, the further evolution of the debate on reliability induces me to say that it is really based on making the system more robust and put it to the position to produce reliability. So we have invested heavily in the Trans-Siberian railways and have decided to subject it to major revamping activity. Whereas this was a question of process engineering in former times, we're now actually faced with issues of marketing, that is, to market speed and reliability in transporting goods on the Trans-Siberian magistral railway, as we dub it. This then allows us to launch new complex transport products, which we are introducing in the market, that we have called a Transip, and has made it in 7 days. We've been able to reduce the time needed for transporting goods from the eastern Russian border to the western border, more than 9,000 kilometers, ladies and gentlemen, from 14 to 11 days. We've managed to do that, and our market surveys, especially in Japan, Korea, and China, have shown and have allowed us to conclude that 7 days is a highly competitive duration. And parting from this approach, we have decided to really focus on this. We have launched various pilot operations with trains from Khodka to Moscow, which were able to do the whole route in 6 days until 2012. The Trans-Siberian railways will be turned over to this speed that is 14 kilometers per day for container, and by 2015, 1,500 kilometers per day will be the aim, that is 24 hours per day. So that will be a highly competitive product that will enable us, as we think, to cover a major part of the increase in transport volumes expected in transport from Asia to Europe. And I'd like to support Mr. Werner in that a single component of the transport system, that is the rail mode, will not be in a position to solve all the problems. No, what we need is supply chains under a uniform management, and this is what we're preparing together with Deutsche Bahn. We are preparing such logistic systems. They are emerging, but I'm convinced that they will be representing normality in a European transport markets as far as Eurasian transport activities are concerned. And the Russian state railways are investing heavily in the development of Russian ports, so as to enhance the effect and cope with increasing speed requirements, which mean that speed must not be reduced in ports. And this is something that is not all too infrequent in Russian ports. So I would like to suggest to you, my listeners, that you should really turn your attention or give more attention to our Trans-Siberian new product. I think we are offering a very novel response under the conditions of globalization, which will certainly continue to evolve after the crisis has been overcome. Now, another remark on our theoretical debate in the first half of the workshop, when we were dealing with transport costs and reliability and security and so on. What I'm interested in is a very important detail. The main aim in transport used to be in transporting goods. Goods have physical properties, data, dimensions, and weights. However, the future is for goods that have not only physical properties, but also consumer qualities and values. And that will, of course, have an impact on changing the logistics qualities. This is an aspect that would or might enable us to win over additional investment in our sector, that is, to go beyond the mere transportation of goods. That might be a very good basis also for the shaping of an appropriate marketing ideology amongst the logistics industry stakeholders. Thank you for your attention.
This project was something which was very interesting for us, because it is more or less in line with what Mr. Werner was talking about concerning the potential international transportation for long distance by railway. Now, our last speaker in the line is going to be Mr. Wei Junfei, who is the Deputy Director of the Waterborne Transportation Institute in China. Mr. Fay, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. So after the Boris nice project, I also want to mention some projects that China is undertaking now. I think this four project is reflect the main issues challenging the container supply chain. So the first one is the water rail intermodal transport. So as you know, in the past 30 years, since China start open door policy, we saw a very rapid increase for the container volume. So in 1995, only 5 million TEUs for the container throughput. So in the 2000s is just over 20 million. So last year is somehow 130 million TEUs. So it's big amount, but the railway play a very limited role in the inland transport, in the hinterland connections. So this make a lot of trouble for the international freight transport, also higher cost. So only less than 1% of the distribution, yeah, of the 120 million.
2 million TEUs on rail in China.
Yeah. For international, it's less than 1 million. Yeah. For international, also for domestic, it's 2 million. So I think it's not only in China, also in Europe and in North America. I think intermodal between rail and sea is the way to facing the future need, especially the challenger from the oil prices, energy saving, carbon emissions, these kind of challengers. So the second project we call the Golden Waterway project. So it's not only the short sea, we mentioned early this workshop, also the inland shipping play a more and more important role in container supply chain in the whole world, especially the countries, the regions who have this kind of favorite condition, like China, Europe, Russia, North America, and also India. I think the inland shipping is the most, friendly, environment-friendly mode. Also, most efficient and energy saving. So we do it. We try to better use of the short sea Golden Waterway, also the inland shipping Golden Waterway. So we want to make the structure changed. Yeah, the supply chain, the transport structure changed and shifted to use more rail and more short sea and more inland shipping. And we need promotion, we need policy, we also need actions for that. The third project we are doing is we try to better integrate, make a better integration between domestic logistics and international supply chain. So as you know, in North America, it's a different system compared with the international container transport. They use different size of containers, say 53 TEU, 53 inches, and also in Europe they use the called sword bodies. There's different systems, and in China we also use different systems. We use partly international containers, partly we have domestic containers. So I think not only within the Chinese situation, I think in the whole world, we try to, if we need better supply chain, we need to make better integration between the domestic transport system into the international systems. Also, not only for the containerized cargo, also for the petrolized cargo. I think the European is doing some project on that, and we're just starting a Chinese system. We want to set up a better system and unique standards for make a better supply chain for the inland transport. So the last project or issues I want to mention is the innovation will make for containers will make a more important role for the future supply chain management. That's one book called "The Container Changed the World." I think that we are developing the concept. The world, not only the ISO, also developed a concept called secure and smart containers. So the future, next generation will be the secure and smart containers. Will make the container world, will make the supply chain better. Not only, at last, I also want to share some ideas about the reliability of the transport in terms of the innovation. I think the main driving forces for make the reliability more important is from the containerized management system for logistics. So also, the innovation will make better reliability for the supply chain. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And I would like to provoke the members of the panel with a remark. And I would be happy to have reactions from the audience as well on that issue. What you heard today was about basically the potential future which can be foreseen on the basis of the existing data and the research work which is carried out in the intermodal transportation area. My dilemma was that during the last at least two decades, this industry had to face with an increasing demand all the time, which resulted in a huge capacity building in the different modes of transportation. These modes are probably not considered as real elements of an intermodal transportation today, but they are there. Now, last year or the year before, we started to hear remarks on first the financial crunch, then the financial crisis, then we heard something about economic downturn, and now we call it a recession. How can the intermodal transportation react on this specific challenge of the fact that there is a huge capacity already available? Still, the qualitative demands are high, while the quantitative demands are a bit floating today. Who would be the first? Mr. Werner.
Yes, this is what actually is my day-to-day business, overcapacities, and the result is there are rates in the market which are very, very low. So we have everywhere we built up in the last 2 years capacities. We build up on road, we build it up on rail, we build it up on sea. A lot of ships are not used anymore, actually. So every ship carries normally 3 sets of containers. So these containers are off the market. So there is a lot of things, and what we see actually is we have prices falling down. So we will have a new situation in the market. I think some of the companies will not survive because we need a clarification in the market. But what we have to do, and that was your question, I think we have to take the time to find out what the customers is requiring, and to do the work where we didn't have the time to the last 2 or 3 years, because we only were reacting. Now we have the time to have a small break and to recognize what will be the next steps in the next years and how should we build up the forces for that. And I think that is what we have to do. The first thing is cut costs, of course, be innovational, because find new solutions. Just reduce costs and just to reduce prices will not help to survive this crisis.
I open the floor for the audience as well, so feel free to comment. And Mr. Reno.
Merci beaucoup. Christian Reynaud de Nestea. J'ai beaucoup apprécié toutes les interventions qui ont été faites. Et ça...
Thank you very much. I've carefully listened and enjoyed all the presentation. It really shows how deeply we're really stuck in the crisis. We talk a lot about maritime logistics and road-bound logistics, and both sectors really do not respond in the same way. So as to what happens on the road and on the waterways, it's not the same thing. We see industrialization in seaborne transport. In real life, we see that prices have fallen. We're undergoing a crisis, a cyclical crisis. Mr. Werner has emphasized, and I told you that the prices actually do not reflect costs anymore. As far as this is concerned, if this goes on for a limited period of time, okay, but then the market will have to respond, and the market will respond in a different way. We don't have these problems of massification on land-borne transport modes. Theoretically, it's easy. The U.S. has pronounced itself. Russia and China have manifested themselves. They're continents and countries where goods transport, rail transport isn't for good perspectives. It's a bit more difficult in Europe. We have not seen the same level of industrialization in this area. That is, the mega players had not yet opted for a rail-bound transport. So these mega players had not yet stepped onto the marketplace and had not yet intervened. But as I said, these mega players are not yet incorporated into the intermodal system. Rather, what we've seen was smaller companies. Of course, you have a middle-sized and large company, but I'm not talking about Maersk and others who work in the container sector. So we are right in the midst of a battlefield, and it's quite difficult to respond. There are technologies. Mr. Rohl has explained them, but we're right in the midst of this battle. Down in the ditches, deeply entrenched, and we must respond now. And if distances are long enough, then it's appropriate to build up an intermodal system and a network in Europe, as you have with the Trans-Siberian railways, or something similar you may have in China. And then we'll have a possibility to transport goods on parts of these networks, but in intercontinental transport activities, things look different. I have a technical question now. As far as globalization is concerned, I don't think we can dodge the issue. However, we'll have to continue to do our research work also on land-borne transport activities. We don't have such a concrete response in Europe, but we're not dealing only with globalization, we also have regionalization issues. Intermodal transport is mentioned over and over again. And Professor Brooks, who speaks of cabotage, that brings us back over and over again to the containers and to maritime transport. However, you also have containers that are unloaded and can be transshipped into larger or smaller containers. And intermodal infrastructures must not only be something regarding the context of intermodal activities. We can also think in terms of roll-on, roll-off systems, ro-ro, or ISO containers could be included in the Mediterranean, for instance. A service system is available, the feeder system, and they supply to various countries. You have ro-ro systems that are compatible with road transport, and we're certainly well positioned in this respect to also add roll-off activities for the Mediterranean countries. So my question is whether logistic standards can be better adjusted to this type of intermodal transport activities. Thank you.
Let's wait for some other questions, and then we can respond to this. The gentleman over there.
Жуков Виктор, я представляю комитет организации сотрудничества железных дорог.
My name is Viktor Zhukov. I'm from the Committee of Cooperation of Railways. Our organization deals with exactly those issues that you have just mentioned. Those are very, very current issues for us, too. We are doing everything in our power to expand and optimize transport between Europe and Asia. There's a large list of unsolved issues and questions. There's an international agreement of railways, and within this framework, we are working on the issues. What Mr. Werner said filled me with optimism, because he said he believed in rail transport between China and Europe. And the transit, of course, will be through Russia. We are doing a lot in this regard, and I'm very grateful for your support. Mr. Lapidus already said that we've got some expertise. Within 7 days, we can ship goods from China to Europe by now. So we've got some tried and tested methods. It's possible to do that kind of transport. In order to roll it out, though, a lot still needs to be done. There are 2 points that are still in our way, 2 obstacles. One of them is the quality of transport. If you have to cover huge distances within 7 days, what does that mean for quality? We've got CIM and SMGS. Here, 2 sets of rules, and our organization is trying to harmonize these 2 systems at the moment. A while ago, we introduced a uniform bill of lading for CIM and SMGS. You don't have to rewrite your bill of lading when you go from one system to the other. That's a big plus. However, crossing the borders is still a lot of hassle. We can make rail transport faster. 200, 300 kilometers per hour is feasible, but between China and Europe, there are at least 5 border crossing points. And that's where the hassle occurs. Those are the bottlenecks. We need to solve the border crossing problems. I would like to use the ITF also to discuss issues along those lines. And I'd like to be very frank. When it comes to border crossings on rail, it's not so much about infrastructure and technology. It's a political issue. It's a regulatory issue. It's about the harmonization and adaptation of regulation. And these issues should be discussed here, too. Well, I've got a second question. Of course, shipping goods from east to west and increasing shipping rates is possible. But what about the empty containers? They have to be brought back. And how is this to be done? This is an important issue too. There are some other unsolved questions in this context. In our times of crisis, well, a very good range of possible solutions has been mentioned here already, but it's important in the situation that we are in currently to stand together. We need to go in the same direction, stand shoulder to shoulder. And if we can manage to do that, we will be strong and we will emerge from the crisis, stronger even than before, maybe. I would hope that the Forum of Ministers of Transport would accept our recommendations and that those recommendations will enable the ministers to create the right environment for us to improve our quality of service, etc. And this is where the customers come into the picture. Perhaps the customers don't really care about the mode of transport they use, but the conditions have to be right, and that's what we can provide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Mr. Werner had a very interesting plea, followed by Mr. Lapidus about China, Germany. But Mr. Werner said something else, and that was, I think it's very important for this discussion here. We talk about global crisis and transport. He said, well, look at the transport prices. They're far too low. We should take a moment, a break, to put it that way, and think about what we can best do. Otherwise, the companies that can deliver other types of transport aren't there, well, anymore, or a number of them aren't there anymore. That brings me to the following point. And I see Mr. Ojala and Mr. Werner sitting next to one another. I would like to hear a little bit, when possible, one element. Ojala said, well, when I look at real life, transport prices are not the big issue. The big issue is management of complex chains. And Mr. Werner says, well, they should become very fast big issue. Well, your neighbors. So I'm a little bit worried that our rapporteur, who I know pretty well, has a little bit problems on what he should give as a sort of advice out of this group here on this issue, because this each and every time is an important issue. Is there a sort of moment to take a break and to look at the whole system? Yes. Or is there a feeling of, well, no, there should be optimization in the global chain world, but that's basically what we should do and nothing more than that.
Thank you. Mr. Werner would like to react.
Yes, thank you very much. But maybe you have to tell that to our customers, because when I tell them that freight costs are not a big issue, then of course they will tell me that they have to calculate their costs, and that's a profit center organization almost. So they are responsible for the logistics, and they want to cut costs as much as possible. So in total, you are absolutely right, and we can discuss it on the helicopter view. It's no problem, huh? But in the day-to-day business, if you sit face-to-face to a customer or beside a customer, he's always writing down anything here now. So then of course the situation is another, because if there is someone who offers 20% lower rates, then of course you are stuck in trouble. And we are far away to calculate costs and then to do what anyone else does, to then make a margin for us and then offer it to the market, to the customers. The situation is that there is a market price, and we have to find out how we can hit this level and how we can cut our costs so that we do not make negative profit. And that is really day-to-day business. And there are some items and even I don't know, political supports and whatever, even maybe with money, I don't know, that someone is able to offer, due to whatever, 40% under our costs. So, and if we talk, and I do not want to have a discussion about China-Germany rail, I think there are some other targets we have to discuss here. But if we think about this, then of course, if we offer a container to a customer for 5,000 euro or 4,000 euro, then it is not nearly competitive with a rate of $150 from Shanghai to Hamburg, plus of course hinterland costs and so on. But it's, let's say, 1,000 euro for the sea transport and 5,000 euro for the land transport. You can have the best ideas, you can do anything, but at the end you stick to the costs, and then you have to offer the rate. And at the end, the customer sitting there and say, okay, now I have 3 alternatives. I take at first the cheapest one, and then of course it has to be reliable, and that's it. So, and there we have to find each other again. Thank you.
And I think this is where you have to add the additional cost elements which are created by those harassments, what Mr. Zhukov was referring to, on the borders between China and Europe.
And he said a very good thing, because there are 5 borders, and we are really working on that matter. And it's really difficult, and it's papers, and it's taxes, and we did two test trains, and we had all the experience from that test train. It's really difficult. We have to get better in Europe on rail, of course, but we're working on that. But actually, there are some circumstances which make it difficult.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the provocation from Mr. Jekyll's side. I do understand very well what Mr. Werner said, and the day-to-day negotiations and price bargaining is very much of the part of the picture. What I was suggesting and implying based on quite substantial empirical evidence is that companies that, if and when they are considering their full costs in their logistics operations, out of those total costs, about 1/3 is transport cost. I'm not saying that it is insignificant, because much of the transport costs are directly visible out-of-pocket costs. And that's where you can see the costs. You get an invoice, you get a contract. Of course, the more complicated service package you get from a logistics company, the more difficult it gets to really put the finger on what actually costs how much and so forth. But it is nevertheless a true out-of-pocket cost. Many of the other logistics cost elements are more of indirect type, and they are very difficult often to estimate or see. But those companies that have or let's put it like this: the more advanced ways companies have to follow up their costs, the more they put emphasis on these trade-offs of quality, time, cost, and things like that. But at the same time, there is the sensitivity and elasticity of even small freight rate increases can be quite substantial. We just heard a very nice presentation from Mr. Lapidus on the Trans-Siberian railways. I was very glad to hear that there's been a lot of effort being done to improve the speed, smooth operations and things like that. But if we just go back a few more years to 2006, Trans-Siberian Railways was transporting over 100,000 TEUs. Without going into details, the rate freights with some surcharges became just about $100–150 higher, and the demand slumped to about 10,000 TEUs in a matter of 2 months, from 100,000 to slightly more than 10,000. So just because of $150 per container. So the elasticity was very high. Shippers, when they saw the out-of-pocket cost, went back to the shipping lines, which took a bit longer time. This is perhaps one of the most dramatic recent examples we have seen on how volatile the markets are. But at the same time, coming back to the basic situation, the situation is very, very dramatic, both for shippers, users of transport services, as it is for transport sector. But I would like to just to conclude with a rather simple stating the obvious, that transport demand is nevertheless derived demand. I mean, there's basically the demand of the shippers first, and then you create the transport and logistics demand. And because transport, logistics basically is a service provision, you can't store it. So the demand fluctuation has been even higher and more severe in transport and logistics because there is no inventory you can play with. So you have, the sector has taken the heat right on with a very severe consequences. It may very well be that once the dust settles, the playground looks very much different what it does today.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to add something that said Mr. Werner, which seems to me very important, that we are in a growing market for the future. Still, yes, I totally agree. And why? Because I agree on what has been said about the effect of the price, of the cost of the transport. But this effect is very low for the global cost of the product. And the growing market is due to this fact. The cost of transport is very low on the cost of the product. And the place of production of the product will be more and more realized where the cost of manpower is very low. So we are in a growing market due to the fact that the cost of transport is very insignificant on the global cost. So you are right, it's very important because it's the choice of the transport mode between sea and between rail will be very volatile during this period. But for the global mass of the transportation, there will not any impact really.
Thank you. I saw Mr. Sorgetti and then the gentleman over there.
Thank you, Mr. Kazatsai. I'm still Marco Sorgetti, Director General of CLICAT. I want to drill a little bit deeper into the issue of technology, connecting with the intervention that we heard from Mr. Fay. He was talking about smart containers and the way to the future into more technological or smarter equipment that we should use. But, I mean, we've been involved as CLICAT. This also connects with what I said before about, you know, how do you conceive your supply chain. We've been involved in the study that was made by the European Union, DG Information Society on RFID and also on other projects and production of the recommendation. And the issue seemed to be more sort of inverted commas political in the sense of is this going to touch upon privacy? Is this going to touch upon different problems? But what I mean is that we have a real technological issue in the sense that, for instance, if we want to use RFID properly to get smarter results, the counts per second we have at the moment are insufficient. We are under 100 counts per second at the moment. We need to go to tens of thousands. Because if we want to use them for both supply chain and security purposes, then we have to count to the piece. And then it comes in 1 second, you have to count 10,000 pieces, 50,000 pieces, not 100. This is just insufficient for us. So, I mean, the engineers have to do their business, in my opinion, if we have to have a different way of having the supply chain in the future that is based on technology. There are very many things that we can use today. ITS is still in its infancy, but it's starting working. But this technology is at the moment insufficient, and we need much better technology if we have to change the rules of the game for the future. Thank you.
Hi, James Wiltshire, UK Department for Transport. I'd like to thank the participants for what's been a very wide-ranging conversation. But one of my troubles as a policy maker has been distilling the policy lessons from all the discussions that there have been. And so I was very interested in Professor Stelzler's presentation, which kind of mirrors some of the techniques that we've been adopting in the UK to analysing journeys from an end-to-end perspective across the different stages of the supply chain. But one of the challenges we've got to with our work is how to take those case study type approaches to a more generalized framework for establishing priorities and pinch points and making the choices that have been discussed this afternoon between cost and time and reliability and the border processes and so on. So I'd be very interested in Professor Stelzler's thoughts on how to take the case study approach that he outlined into a more generalized framework for making policy decisions. Thank you very much.
Yeah. It was easy to be possible to change our names and addresses after the session. But I have another remark. I don't think that nowadays the technological problems are the main barriers in intermodal transport. I think the network effects and the consequences of the network designs to the cost level is one of the most problems. So concrete in Switzerland, we see a modal shift from train to road nowadays. The intermodal transport loses shares in the market. It loses absolutely, and it loses also market shares. Why? This development, they have very high level of fixed costs, and the road transport is broken up to a dumping competition now. They drive under marginal costs, and the operators on the intermodal transport have no chance to adapt their price and their cost structures to the price development on the road. Therefore, we are threatened by the consequence that the service level on the intermodal transport will decrease also. They take off some trains from the tracks, and the frequency of the trains decreases, and so the service attractivity is also decreasing, and therefore this would be an important field for the transport policy to support for a short period the intermodal transport, but otherwise when we do nothing, the intermodal transport lose market share.
Yes, Mr. Werner.
Yes, that's absolutely right. That is what happens, and we try to react because we are selling the trains to the operators, and we are sitting together. And we have a lot of operators where we have shares in. Kombiverkehr 50%, Transrad 50%, Hupac we have shares in. If you mention Switzerland traffic, the question is how should we react? Just to reduce the prices is not enough. We need the frequency of the trains. We need 5 days, five trains a week, to keep the measure on a high level. So we are thinking about by 5, just pay 4. So we take a risk of the capacity. That of course we can only do a few months, because then we are dead. Huh? But this is absolutely that what happens. We have relations where we had to reduce to 3 and to 2 trains per week, and we are losing customers. So that is what we are actually discussing. And I know that the Belgians, they now get the support from the government, because they get 25 million each year to support this traffics. So, and we are sitting here discussing with political people. So maybe this is an effort, and we have to look on it, because if this is done with the Belgians, and they are not just traveling with their containers in Belgium, they're doing it European-wide. So maybe we have to think about it European-wide, or to say it easy, anyone or nobody.
Well, Mr. Werner, with this remark, unfortunately everything comes to an end sooner or later, and this was the last intervention today, this afternoon, due to the fact that the time is going out and you have to reach your bus if you want to participate on this reception. First of all, as a summary, I have to thank for all the interventions we heard today. We had a number of excellent presentations, and all the speeches, even the questions were leading us towards a probably better solution. To be honest, I learned something as a private conclusion for myself, that if you want to talk to a railway customer, you need a helicopter. With this in mind, I wish you a very good series of other meetings for the next few days, and enjoy the reception this evening. Thank you for your presence.
Thank you.